So you can take this further by remembering how you were as a child, how by obsessing about a particular food like broccoli or whatever, that it tasted like the absolute worst thing on earth. And similarly, how people have conceptualized fat, especially animal fat, as being really, really repulsive, and people have a lot of trouble eating it. They're grossed out by it, when in fact, that's all in the mind. People are grossed out by fat because they feel that it's fattening, and because, especially with animal fat, that it's unhealthy. But in fact, bacon tastes really pretty darn good, and so do a lot of other animal fats. And um, so you could do the exact same thing for sweet food. And so by realizing just how fattening sweets are, in fact, they're far far worse than taking fat itself, because they bring you in that sugar high that then gets followed by the sugar low. And when you're in that low, you need to eat again, and so you're getting hungry several times a day when you really shouldn't. Considering also how sweet food and fast sugars really lead towards diabetes, and hypoglycemia, and also thinking of how, or noticing how your teeth feel after you fed the bacteria in the mouth liquid sugar. The saliva becomes really acidic from the acidity that the bacteria release through the metabolism of that sugar. So and also you can notice perhaps the sugar highs. Those are very subtle. They're not very easy to notice, but I definitely despise a sugar high, in part because I know that when I feel a really strong high in my blood sugars, that it'll be followed by a low soon afterwards. That'll be hard to manage. But definitely also notice the lows that you have. And so if although sweets and fruit and so on will remain sweet and still will taste good to you, these are things that you should do for meals. Meals should be savory, they should not be sweet. And uh, most people have the taste now, they prefer sweet meals. They want their meals to be sweet, and it's an acquired taste, and it's a very bad taste to have, because because if you're eating a meal that tastes sweet in the mouth, then for sure it has a lot of fast sugars, and for sure it's fattening and all those other things. And so um, uh, so if you focus on this, and you change your tastes, over time you're going to find that you have a preference for a completely new set of foods, and you're now hungry and for things that are good for you, and now it's actually very, very easy to to eat a healthy diet and to not put on weight. It's not a question anymore. Once you've made that change, it won't be a question anymore of you having to deny the things that you want. Another thing that can help is to learn to better use spices. So on the one hand, it's a question of how the mind needs to be convinced that we're getting food from a wide variety of sources. And so um, if you eat too much of the same thing, then after a while you'll tire of it, obviously. But it's also a question of bland food, uh, generally, and perhaps this is the French perspective, that if you eat something bland, you're going to need to eat more of it before you feel satiated. And conversely, that if something has a really complex taste, a very rich taste, um, uh, that it's not going to require nearly as much food for you to kind of stop eating, and just to say to yourself, wow, that feels pretty good. So, but the main point though being just that the two mainstays that people use for making food taste better is sugar and salt, and both are very bad. Salt shouldn't be. A lot of people have suffer from hypertension, but sugar in particular. I was mentioning how people have developed a taste for sugar, and they want to taste sweetness in just about everything in their meals. Well, in order to make the food taste good, you need to learn to add things other than sugar and salt and animal fat. And you can achieve that by using spices, and uh, spices are a great way to to make food that's extremely healthy, but that tastes fabulous. And so this really is an important thing to learn and to kind of focus on. Um, and similarly, eating hot, spicy food is something that can also help. Something being spicy really does add a fair bit to the experience. And this is one example of how, if you approach things in the right way, you can make them you can change yourself and become a different type of person. And so if you're the type of person that's very sensitive to spicy food, well, you're not a very easy person to have as a guest, because anytime the meal, if the meal of the night might have been a chili or some other spicy food, um, well, because of you, everybody has to eat something that was made to be really rather bland, because you're too sensitive, right? Or you're just going to suffer and you won't be really able to eat anything. So you're not a very easy guest that way. And well, what is it that's different about you versus others, and how can you change yourself? And so the thing about spicy food is that uh, the spice for hot food is a molecule that causes a reaction where our body thinks that it's causing some kind of damage, but it's actually not. It's not really. It's a false pain, and so there's a secondary kind of pleasure from that initial reaction of pain. And regardless, the main thing is that there's a negative feedback loop in effect. So the more you take, the less the weaker the reaction is. And so, and this is the key thing, which is that if you eat spicy food only once in a blue moon, then you're never adapting, and you're never giving your body a chance to adapt. So all you need to do in order to become someone who can eat spicy food is to have it a few times a week for several weeks. And so pick the amount of spiciness that's comfortable for you, so that you're not putting yourself through actual pain. And very quickly you'll notice the adaptation, and the adaptation is very, very strong, where it's several orders of magnitude. Between someone who's used to eating spicy food and someone who isn't, there's easily 1,000 times more sensitivity. And so, and what's interesting as well is that adaptation stays with you, in that even if you don't eat spicy food for weeks or months, when you eat spicy again after you've given yourself that full cycle of adaptation, that your baseline still remains fairly high. So it's not like you have to do serious training on a yearly basis. It's a one-time effort once more.